almost there.
Almost there. Almost there. Almost another Friday live
Q&A.
And I think we are. Cool. All right. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us for another live Q&A here at the Edge offices. You've got myself, Paul Poi, CEO and co-founder of Edge, joined with
RJ, Q&A and support.
Right. And he gets a lot of the questions. So feel free to fire them off as well. So feel free to join us here live on YouTube. We're here looking at the chat. So if you've got any questions for us, either in the crypto space or about Edge in general, feel free to fire them off and we'll try to get them covered during the course of the episode. But definitely quite a few questions have come up and topics have come up on crypto Twitter and social media, to some degree, people calling and asking us. So we'll get those covered. Main thing that we're going to be talking about today is 51% attack.
Yeah, so if you were mining, there was a 51% attack on the Vertcoin network.
51% of Vertcoin network. And we'll talk as well on that note regarding mining about a new protocol that was just put out that could help decentralized mining.
Yeah.
And these two topics kind of go hand in hand, which is a cool thing about talking about them today. So let's first cover the 51% attack on Vertcoin. So thanks to some of the news articles for kind of covering this, but I think this is the second time this year that Vertcoin has suffered a 51% attack. So for those that don't understand what the heck is a 51% attack, that's when there are miners out on the network mining a specific coin, and they have more than 51% of the hashing power.
Right. And they can basically do double spends and try to get some money out of that.
Exactly. And so really, if you own more than 51% of the hashing power, it doesn't mean that that is an attack on the network in and of itself. It's if you try to reverse transactions. So a 51% attack that is actually malicious would imply that the attacker accumulated all of the resources necessary to build blocks separately from the rest of the network. Build blocks at a faster rate that don't include some transactions that are on the main network. So it's kind of take Vertcoin. Once again, this had happened to Vertcoin. So the classic example, and this actually happened. So we saw that in Vertcoin, about 603 blocks on the Vertcoin network
were basically replaced
with what we show as 553 different blocks
whatever transactions they wanted to write.
Exactly. And so any transactions within that 603 blocks that this attacking miner didn't want on the network, they could effectively wipe out on the new side of the network, which is what they did, but it amounted to a very small amount of money at this time around.
Yeah.
It was only about, $20 or so?
Right. And then last year was more. I think it was looks like $100,000, 300 blocks rewrite.
Exactly, and the main way that attackers are doing this is they're effectively depositing money into an exchange, and then withdrawing that money out, say into a different coin. So say you deposit Vertcoin onto an exchange, and then go and withdraw the funds out onto your own wallet, but then wipe out the transactions that actually deposited the money onto the exchange in the first place.
Yeah, so you can get the coin that you want out, and the coin that you deposited never made it in.
And effectively never been. And basically you'd be wiping out the exchange. So the exchange would be the one that suffers in such a case. But in the case of this specific Vertcoin attack, not a whole lot of money was lost. It was actually something that was noticed happening. The attack was being seen on the network where there was an accumulation of hashing power or a sudden jump in hashing power by an entity that kind of came out of nowhere.
Like a rogue pool.
Almost like a rogue pool.
Unknown pool.
Exactly. And it was actually warned of the Vertcoin community warned the exchanges to be aware that an attack might be in play. Right. And effectively to lock funds. So don't allow funds that are deposited to instantly be used and then withdrawn for some period of time, because they're the ones that are effectively at risk. And so this kind of brings about, and as we kind of talk about stuff on our Q&A, we like to relate it to the greater impact of crypto as a whole. And what kind of insights can we glean from this? So Vertcoin was attacked not long after having actually changed the hashing algorithm in our understanding to a new hashing algorithm for
Lyra 2R3.
Yeah, Lyra 2RE version 3 of NiceHash. So interestingly enough, this is one of the things that many coins try to do in order to help keep mining decentralized. And we'll go on regarding the Stratum v2 protocol later and how that helps mining stay decentralized. But a lot of coins that we talked about, I think the last time we were on about how Monero just recently went through a hard fork to change their hashing algorithm.
Yeah, so you can't use a specific set of miners anymore. It becomes different algorithm.
A different algorithm. Any ASICs that happen to have been built won't be able to be used, and to some degree, it even makes CPUs more optimal.
Right.
So in the case of Vertcoin, they are constantly trying to keep mining decentralized. But one of the biggest disadvantages of keeping mining decentralized is simply the fact that yes, it's decentralized, meaning any computer can start mining on your network, which means that an attacker can accumulate computing power from anywhere in the world.
Yeah, easily. Yeah.
Easily. And it doesn't have to be specific ASICs. It doesn't have to be specific hardware. It can be pretty much any computer out there in the world can be fairly optimal at mining that blockchain. And that's effectively what happened with Vertcoin. So this is the inherent challenge with the attempt to decentralize mining.
Right. But it's more on the smaller coins that don't have, like, less expensive to do this kind of attack. So like on Bitcoin, it would be a lot more expensive to do this 51% attack.
Exactly. So for sure, it's more expensive on Bitcoin, but more importantly, there isn't much other hardware that you can use to attack Bitcoin.
Right.
You can't just suddenly take hardware that's just lying around all over the world and then use it to suddenly attack Bitcoin, because you need very specific hardware.
Yeah, like they say.
And that's the challenge, is that the centralization of mining also helps protect it from a 51% attack. Right. Even coins that aren't Bitcoin, you can't mine with the same hardware. So, for example, Ethereum and Litecoin, there's definitely ASIC miners getting built out there so that you can mine other coins than Bitcoin. But it's almost a badge of honor to have ASICs built for your coin. That means there's enough value and enough interest in mining those coins that manufacturers are willing to build ASICs for it. But that also helps keep you more so protected, because you now can't be attacked by just botnet farms, from someone going onto the dark web and paying admittedly a fairly small amount of money to then mine your coin, but for the sake of attacking it.
Yeah, like it was like CPU, just like a botnet farm of CPU mining.
Yep, exactly. So this is not news in a way. It's like, sure, Vertcoin got attacked, and luckily in this case, not a lot of money was lost by the exchanges because they kind of saw it happening ahead of time. But this is going to be an open question that we're going to hear kind of over and over again. Is it really beneficial for us to keep trying to be ASIC resistant in the long run, or is it actually better off to try to build a protocol and stabilize that protocol and hope that ASICs actually get built and keep the network protected, at the compromise of centralizing mining?
Right.
Now, you used to mine, right, RJ?
Yeah, it's a little bit.
Did you still mine at this point?
Not anymore.
Not anymore, but and so probably, what's the reason why you don't mine anymore?
Yeah, because it drops on the return on profit becomes less and less as the difficulty gets higher.
Exactly, and it's tough for you as well, given that you're just an individual miner. You probably don't have access to super cheap electricity, don't have access to super cheap ASICs or hardware, and admittedly, it's kind of a shitty compromise. But you got to pick one or the other as far as how much you're going to put into decentralizing mining by making it specifically ASIC resistant.
Right.
But that leads us actually into kind of our next topic. But before we go into the next topic, let's talk about our word of the day.
Word of the day.
So for any of you that was following us, that have been following us on Twitter, we're doing this weekly word of the day now. So
chance to win some crypto.
A chance to stack some sats. So we're giving away Bitcoin. So $20 in Bitcoin for anyone that takes one of the, I think, 2 or 3 tweets that the Edge Wallet account has mentioned the word of the day for the past couple of days. So take one of those tweets, reply to it, and mention this word of the day. And if you're the first person to mention it, and by the way, you should probably add it. You should probably post the QR code of your Edge wallet.
Yeah, put your address on there.
Post your BTC address to the Edge wallet, and then we'll send it $20 if you can go ahead and say the word of the day. And today's word of the day is
synergy.
Yes, that overused, played out word that every startup tech entrepreneur in a board meeting says over and over again because they don't know what else to say. synergy. So yes, the word of the day today is synergy. Go ahead and punch that into Twitter, reply to the Twitter account of Edge, and let them know that you heard synergy as a word of the day, and do post a screenshot of your Bitcoin address from Edge, and
so
we'll
we
go
can
ahead and
send you some money.
send you $20. But cool. Before we get into that, there's a synergy between the two topics. We talked about attempting to decentralize mining, which is what Vertcoin tries to do.
Yeah.
And then an actual cool change
Into the mining protocol.
into the mining protocol with Stratum v2, which actually does help decentralize mining pretty sufficiently. So the Stratum protocol, for those that haven't heard, is basically a way that miners communicate between each other.
Yeah. Those are like the addresses that you use to connect to the mining pool.
Exactly. It also helps communicate for mining pool participants how much they have actually hashed. So they say, hey, here's an attempt at a hash. Is it right? Here's another attempt at a hash, and here's it right.
Basically, how much work is done, how much is stale, how much failed.
Got it. Yep. And one of the biggest problems with mining pools is that many people can't mine on their own because their hash power is so limited. Their odds of finding a block are really low.
Yeah, like the chance of winning the lottery.
Exactly. So a mining pool is basically just a lottery. And what do many people do to participate in a lottery? What do they do with their friends?
They pull funds and
they pool
like
funds.
A group buy or something.
Exactly. You get 100 of your coworkers, if you have 100 coworkers, to each buy a ticket. And if one person wins, you split it. You split the rewards across 100 people. That's effectively what mining pools are. They're basically lottery pools. But the problem is that the mining pool operator is the one that gets to decide on the consensus rules of the protocol.
Right.
They get to decide which transactions get included in the block. They get to decide what the consensus rules are for that specific block. So if there's a voting protocol, so I think it's BIP1, if there's a hard fork being proposed or a soft fork being proposed, miners can actually, in the block that they mine, specify their vote on what to implement.
So they get to pick which transactions they get to vote for.
Not just which transactions, but also what protocol upgrades or changes they would like to see. This is how SegWit was implemented.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So before SegWit was implemented, the miners effectively would vote, yes, I want SegWit, or no, I don't want SegWit, and they put that as a little nugget of information inside of the blocks that they would solve. But individuals that were mining didn't have the ability to say that.
They
vote.
didn't have a say, just the
Didn't have a direct say.
pool did.
Only the entire pool did, and your only option was to switch between pools.
Yeah.
So if you didn't like what your pool was going to say, you had to switch to another pool. But if there's only, like in Bitcoin, really only about 5 pools, you don't have a whole lot of choice.
Yeah, there's not a lot of freedom of choice.
Yeah, it probably reminds people of, well, maybe the party system here in the US, where you might kind of like one party, but you like the decisions that the other party has, but your only option is to switch completely from one party to the other.
Right.
And so it's kind of a delegated system, and that's all you're left with in mining. But now with the new Stratum v2 protocol proposal, individual miners for the block that they might potentially solve can actually vote on what protocol upgrades they would like. For example, SegWit or not SegWit, and they can also vote for specific transactions to get included into the block.
Right.
And so does it truly decentralize mining? No, there's no such thing as 100% decentralized anyway. So you can't.
It's getting better, step in the right direction.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a step in the right direction. And it's been easily one of the big complaints about mining is that, heck, it's not decentralized because there's only a few number of pools.
Yeah.
And the pools get to make a big decision. Now, that decision does effectively more spread about within the different people individually participating.
Right.
But I would say, there are probably still some issues with mining decentralization.
Right.
It's not fully decentralized. Many critics would say, well, what about access to the hardware in and of itself?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, did you buy some hardware for mining?
Yeah, like the graphics cards, but the more easily available it is, you would think that makes it more decentralized.
Correct, exactly.
But just like in this example from the 51% attack, it also makes it easier for the attacker to just buy up all those cards or whatever it is and then just mine and do the attack.
Exactly. And so ASICs being something that are not as readily available to the mass audience. So in a way, the protocol is helping decentralize some of the decision making that mining pools have, but it still causes it still doesn't fix the centralization of the hardware availability. And even if you had access to hardware,
Yeah.
you still need one big thing for mining, which is electricity.
Yeah, cost of electricity.
I'm not sure if you cared.
free.
I know, having been someone that actually mined, what was your general cost of electricity? Do you know what your kilowatt
Yeah, at
hour
least
number?
$200, but at one point it reached over $600 a month.
$100 a month.
Like I was hitting the next tier.
Did you ever look into what your kilowatt hour?
I didn't
like
really look
cents per
into the
kilowatt
stats,
hour?
but it was, I got to look into that. But
Chances
it was
are, being
passing
someone
that second level.
someone over here in the U.S. And here, especially in California, most likely your electricity costs are much higher
Yeah.
than a lot of the big companies that are mining on a regular basis.
Right.
So definitely improvement. So hats off to, I know some of the contributors for this protocol were Blue Matt on contributing to the Stratum V2 protocol, which is actually a change from some of the original protocols they had worked on. And it was also one of the companies that operates one of the bigger mining pools, Brains, BRAIINS,
Yeah, I see.
that also helped contribute to this version 2 of the protocol. So can't wait for it to kind of get out there into the wild. Not that that would cause me to mine at this point. It's definitely not in my personal interest. But hopefully it reduces the argument that people can make on saying, what does it matter if
Like you don't have a say.
Yeah,
But now individual miners can
they
have
have
more of a say.
have a little bit more of a say, which is cool. So I'm all for it. Great job on the protocol. I know it's still going through a lot of discussion before it fully gets rolled out and implemented. And people, they're expecting several months, 3 to 6 months before it goes out into the wild. But for you that are miners, especially if you are out there as individual miners and you are using mining pools to mine Bitcoin, then definitely leverage your vote. And so I've not been a big person to vote in like elections, but I feel like
Me too.
your impact in voting tends to be much higher when you're voting for kind of smaller parts of your life. Like I've heard like one of the most impactful votes that people really, really care about is literally their HOA, if they have one, or local government. This is kind of like a mini local government, voting on your own coin, especially if you're already mining, then leverage that vote.
Right.
Right, change whatever default settings you have in your app, and actually make sure that you're including the transaction that you deem to be valid, not allowing censorship of the transactions to go through.
Right on.
But cool. So another topic that we wanted to chat about, and we didn't kind of list this in the YouTube title, but it's relevant definitely this week.
Yeah.
And relevant for edge users in some ways because some people hold this asset.
Oh, it's Psi and Dai.
Psi and Dai. So
some-
we mentioned that one I think last week. So that's coming up in a future release.
Yes.
So next week's release should have now full support for Psi and Dai, as well as compound Dai and compound Psi.
Right.
But recently a coin was just delisted.
Oh, yeah.
Recently delisted from Poloniex, which was quite the drama experience.
Yeah,
on
and
Twitter.
that one was called Digibyte.
Good old Digibyte. It's
Yeah.
been around it's one of the longest standing coins. It's been around
They're
since
pretty
the early
old
days.
school. Yeah. So what was the reason for the delistment
Yeah,
for Digibyte this time?
It's quite an entertaining follow on Twitter. For those of you that don't know about Digibyte, one of its early kind of developers, founders, leads. Obviously, there's no leaders in some of these cryptocurrencies. As
But
Jared
it's a lot of
Tate.
influence.
Yeah, he had a lot of influence in the Digibyte space. But Jared Tate, who I've met, great guy, smart, knows what he's doing. We support Digibyte on Edge, and we thought it was a solid project that deserved a listing and support. But he got onto a rant on Twitter about Tron and the acquisition, or at least the heavy investment by Tron into Poloniex. And whether you love or hate Tron, to me, that is not necessarily relevant to the discussion about Digibyte. Right?
Yeah.
Whether or not Tron invested in or purchased Poloniex shouldn't really have any bearing on Digibyte.
It's unrelated.
It shouldn't be related at all. But he went on this rant about Tron being very centralized, which it definitely has some aspects of centralization, as many coins do, although this one, probably stronger than others. Definitely its leadership is quite strong within a single person with Justin Sun. But Jared went on this long rant, included Poloniex on the rant because Poloniex...
And this is on Twitter, right?
This is on Twitter. And
okay.
Poloniex had offered to list for free any asset based on Tron. So clearly you can see the conflict of interest here. You've got Tron having invested in Poloniex, and Poloniex being a major exchange, offered to list any of the Tron assets. And right after Jared's rant, there was a reply from Poloniex saying, okay, we think that Digibyte is no longer suited or fit to be listed on Poloniex.
Yeah, so they got delisted.
Yeah, at no point in time did Jared mention anything to do with Digibyte or make a comparison between the two. He was just simply stating his own opinions about Tron. But the lashback from Poloniex and correlating, obviously, Jared's involvement with Digibyte seemed almost childish.
Yeah. Because why bring Digibyte into this fight?
Yeah, exactly. Why not just stand up for what you feel are good responses to Jared's criticism?
Yeah.
Right? Actually just go ahead and defend yourself as opposed to, okay, well, no, we don't like you.
Pulling the plug.
It's just simply pulling the plug. And if anything, it brings about more attention. Like, we wouldn't even be talking about this today if Poloniex hadn't pulled the plug on Digibyte. And really looking back, of all the different coins that are listed on Poloniex, Digibyte, for what it's worth, it's not worth a ton. It's not ranked really highly on CoinMarketCap, but they had a fair launch. Yeah. It wasn't pre-mined. There was no ICO. They make an attempt at keeping mining decentralized. Right. With the hashing algorithms that they've implemented. They're one of the first to implement a bunch of different hashing algorithms all in one to keep ASICs out of the picture. And so there's, not that I like using the word shitcoin, but there's shittier coins, much shittier than Digibyte. That's what I'd call at least a solid project attempting to put actual engineering effort into the coin, into the protocol. So a bit of an unfair lashback. And does this a side of things to come in crypto, where now the exchanges have strong alignments with specific coins?
Just for an opinion that you're going to say they're going to bring the coin into this?
Yeah, exactly. So you make a bad statement, suddenly your coin, or it's not even your coin per se, but maybe one that you've helped build and are associated with, suddenly gets delisted because you make a statement criticizing, and sometimes fairly criticizing, a coin that isn't even part of the exchange, but one that had invested into an exchange.
Into it.
So to their tweet claim to delist. And interesting thing is, it came out of nowhere. It came out of nowhere in the thread of a completely separate discussion.
Yeah.
It would have been at least, if they wanted to at least be a little bit wiser about their communication, like, good Christ, Poloniex, hire a PR company, for Christ's sake, if you haven't already. But make a completely separate post saying that you've analyzed, kind of shat on you. Even if that's one of the reasons, at least cite something else outside of the thread of this rant against Tron and Poloniex.
Yeah, completely unrelated rant.
Yeah. So, interesting discussion, interesting thing to follow. It's just more of a crypto Twitter, drama, which
we have a lot.
Which we have a lot
of crypto space.
There's definitely no shortage of it.
Yeah.
But I'd say I don't think Digibyte's in any trouble. Yeah. They're still listed on a ton of different exchanges, including Edge and a lot of the different partners that we have at Edge. So you can still buy, sell, and trade Digibyte.
Right. And indirectly, it's still good advertisement for them now. Digibyte's on the spotlight.
Exactly. Now Digibyte's on the spotlight. And
so it might backfire on Poloniex.
It's almost like no news is bad news. Well, in this case, it's not like anything really bad happened to Digibyte, and nothing super negative was said by Jared Tate. So it's I've probably been positive press for them. So sure, they got delisted by Poloniex. I haven't looked at the actual price and whether or not that impacted the price, but I think long term the project is entirely fine. Nothing that will long term impact it. So we got a question here online from Heijin Lee. Your thoughts on Hex? I have not looked at Hex.
Neither have
too carefully. So, Heijin, thanks for asking the question. You're going to make it a to-do on our list to look more carefully at Hex. I've seen a few videos, generally have not been very positive, but that's just kind of the nature of crypto Twitter. Whenever you create a negative sentiment, that tends to get more upvotes and likes, and it crosses your feed on Twitter and social media much more often. So it's only fair that we look into also what are the positives about it, but let's leave that as a to-do for probably next Friday's live Q&A.
We'll get to. We'll definitely take down notes.
Yep. Cool. So we'll definitely take a look at that one. Don't have immediate thoughts on Hex, but promise we'll get back to you on that. But cool. But thanks for asking the question, Heijin.
Let's see, we've got a few minutes left.
Got a few minutes left.
A quick recap, maybe of November, like some of the highlights.
Yes, quite a lot happened in November. We're just getting kickstarted with December.
Yeah.
Go for it, RJ.
Yeah, so some of the cool things in November, it looks like SegWit reached a new all-time high of 63% usage. So it's growing.
Exactly. It is growing. It's something that has been a lot of there's been a lot of criticism of SegWit and it not really being adopted, not being used by a lot of exchanges and wallets, and that many were holding back. And I think people fail to realize how hard it can be to implement even what they might consider as a small technical change.
Yeah.
Right? They might consider it a small technical change, but especially for the larger companies. And if you think about it, much of the transaction volume is probably generated by some of the biggest companies in crypto. And so if they held back on implementing SegWit, a huge amount of the transaction volume stays on non-SegWit transactions, and of course, and they incur higher fees. But give them time. The bigger you are, the slower you move.
Yeah.
Right? You become a Titanic in the space, and some, I won't mention names, but there's some big companies in the space, and it just simply takes longer for them to move on it.
Yeah.
There's so much more risk involved when they make a change than when smaller, more agile companies, such as Edge, make a change. So they're moving slow, but they're getting there.
Yeah,
and I think that's
that's
a testament to how we're able to get to like 63%. I think we'll eventually get to a fairly high percentage of that. Now, granted, we'll never get to 100%.
Right.
Number one, you can't actually definitively tell how many transactions are actually in SegWit in a way, because if someone sends to a SegWit address, you don't actually know that address is SegWit. Mm-hmm. Until someone spends from it, because it could look like a multi-sig address.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because it always has a 3 address. So
if they're using a 3 address, if they're using a pay-to-script hash address to receive a transaction, you don't necessarily know that that's SegWit versus just being a pay-to-script hash. Gotcha. Now, the person that sent the money, you would know, right? You know that that's a SegWit transaction because of how the funds were sent. So. Yes, hats off to the protocol for achieving a higher kind of milestone in the month of November.
Right.
So cool.
And then the last couple of ones, so I thought these were pretty big, but so it looks like Germany passed a law that enables banks to store crypto, and related to that, just came out I think today or yesterday, but France also plans to test out their own digital currency with their central bank.
So I'll start from reverse. So France testing their own digital currency. It's another fiat currency. It'll have all the issues of fiat currency.
Yeah,
to me, as soon as it's a country, as soon as it's a country that's looking at implementing their own digital currency, I always say they're basically implementing a payment method. Yeah. Not really a currency. It's just a new and potentially better way of sending their currency around the world. Right. From one person to another, from a bank to another person, from the government to a bank, which is what happens a lot. Really, it's a payment mechanism, and it's not a currency in and of itself, much like in ways, Tether and GUSD and USDC.
TUSD.
And we call them stable coins. Really, they're a payment mechanism for the dollar.
Right.
They're a better payment mechanism in many ways, better than credit card, has lower fees, is more, not fully, but more censorship resistant. But I would hardly call it a coin in and of itself.
Right. And then don't forget now more incentives with the higher interest for some of the coins.
Right, exactly.
Stable coins.
Yep, exactly. But the other thing you had mentioned, which is Germany, now being allowed, banks now being allowed to hold cryptocurrency versus just fiat.
Yeah. So what does it mean? What do you think? Does it mean
this is a clear sign of things to come. This is basically telephone companies now providing internet access.
Yeah.
And I've had this kind of story of how the crypto space will evolve for quite some time, and that the biggest companies in crypto were and currently are exchanges. But the exchanges need access to the banks to provide the services to the end user base.
Right.
But in the end, it's a flip of a switch for a bank to provide the same services as a lot of these big centralized exchanges.
Yeah, because they're the gatekeeper.
They've already dealt with currency exchange.
Yeah.
They already deal with the banking system. They already deal with compliance, regulation. They're potentially orders of magnitude bigger than a lot of these companies. And so why wouldn't they enter the space?
Right.
And so holding crypto is only the first step. You start to replace the custodian services that are getting built on crypto. But at some point, they become the exchanges as well.
Right.
But what that doesn't replace, and where I think banks won't enter because it's a much different, challenging field, is into the world of providing non-custodial
Yeah,
services.
that's what I was about to say, non-custodial.
Actual, true, direct access to the blockchain. That is what crypto is actually designed for and what it was built for.
Right. Be your own bank.
Be your own bank.
That's what
And
it's
so
all about.
Banks don't want you to be your own bank, so they're not going to enter in that space. They want to be your bank.
Yeah.
Exchanges are playing kind of a half bank role, and so banks entering into their realm is. I think this is a major threat to exchanges.
Yeah.
That's probably the summary of my thoughts on this new ruling in Germany. Is that the biggest threat is what were the partners of exchanges? These banks simply become them. And there's no good reason over the long haul, as crypto becomes much more embedded into our ecosystem, that banks don't just do this.
Then possibly over ATMs also, because then I can just deposit cash into my bank and they convert it to Bitcoins. If
They could, yeah, you can imagine that
Yeah.
now ATMs that banks already have can now be Bitcoin ATMs. And most banks only have one-way ATMs. They only spit out money.
Right.
Whereas a lot of people want to put money in to receive Bitcoin. Whether or not that's a small change to the machinery, yet to be seen.
Yeah, or
But-
even that, if they just send Bitcoin to the bank, I go to my local bank, send Bitcoins at the ATM machine, get cash out, they would have
Right.
an advantage of over all other crypto ATMs.
Exactly. So the banks are clearly the biggest threat to any of the crypto custodial financial services because they've already dealt with the biggest challenges that those companies have, right? Regulatory compliance, money handling, licensing in the different regions. And in many ways, they've already done exchange-like services. Probably the single thing that keeps the crypto financial service companies differentiated from the banks is that they've had to deal with crypto security. And that's one thing banks have never had to deal with is securing crypto.
Yeah.
Although the exchanges haven't done a great job of it.
Right.
Right, they haven't done a great job
Maybe
of
the
it.
banks will do worse.
We'll see how good the banks do. Hopefully better. But that's probably the single thing that they've got going for them in comparison to the banks. Right. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, we're just about out of time. Let's go
over,
into
events.
Events. We got a few events coming down the pipe. Hope to see you guys at some of these events and be able to go kind of chat one-on-one live. First of all, LaBitConf is kicking off next week. This is hats down, best conference in South America, if not one of the best Bitcoin conferences in the world. It's been running now, I think, over 5 years straight in various countries. Next week, it will, and this year, it will be in Montevideo in Uruguay. So that's going to be Thursday and Friday, December 12th and 13th. I'll be speaking there. Hope to catch you there. Say hi if you're going to be there. And right after that, on Saturday the 14th, there's a meetup in Porto Alegre, just a little bit off from Montevideo. This is Porto Alegre, Brazil. I'll be speaking at a meetup over there, along with a few other projects. And then a couple days after that, in Sao Paulo, Brazil, December 16th, there'll be a meetup, and we'll be presenting there as well. So I'll be there over in Sao Paulo before returning back here to San Diego for the rest of the holidays.
Nice.
Yep. Cool. And this is a little bit early, but we just confirmed that we'll be attending the Miami North American Bitcoin Conference.
Yeah, so that'll be like, what, our fourth?
We've been there. Let's see. We went, let's recap here. First time that we had gone, it was not the first Miami Bitcoin Conference, but we went in January 2015.
2015, okay.
2015. I remember that year. We actually did the Hidden Bits promotion.
Yeah, I remember.
You remember Hidden Bits?
Yeah, with Airbits.
With Airbits, we planted private keys all around town and had people hunt and find them through the merchant directory. So we did that in 2015.
If you imagine, those hidden bits are probably worth a lot today.
Worth a lot. I think they're all found though.
Yeah.
They're fortunately all found. So we were there in 2015. I think we made a skip to 2016, but we were there as well in 2017.
We were there during the crypto explosion.
Crypto explosion. Yep.
With all the Lambos.
Huge blow up in 28. Actually, January 2018 was a big blow up. We were there in January 2017 when Bitcoin was just starting to hit its new all-time high around $1,000. It was there January 2018 when it was crazy. And then January 2019, we were there this past year. It was a little bit more mellow, but actually a great conference. And we hope to see you there January 2020. Hindsight's always 2020. So
hope to see you guys there.
Looking forward to the new year. So thanks for joining, everybody. Once again, we'll catch you next week.
Yep. And don't forget.
Awesome, cool. Looks like there was a word of the day winner. And remember, if you haven't already, send us your Edge public address, and we'll send you that $20 of Bitcoin. Great job stacking sats.
Yep. And don't forget, not your keys.
Not your coin.
All right.
See you guys
next week.
Take care. Bye.